That's good. And hold on a second, folks. What's going on? Oh. Alrighty. There we go. Good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Vilma. Good morning and welcome to Mystical Teachings from the Tanya. Rabbi Ronnie Vine coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We welcome this morning. We have we're on Instagram. Welcome, Isaiah. We have Julia with us from Florida, and Andrea in Phoenix is on Facebook. Robert in Boston, good morning. Denise, Davida, and Liba in New York. Oh, my sister Leora is on in the homeland of Israel. Thank you, Leora. Good to see you. I mean, see your picture at least. Molly, welcome. Anna in Hungary, good afternoon. Elaine is with us from Georgia. Lisa in the UK, good afternoon. John in North Carolina. Gelise in Georgia. And, Frima from Montreal, welcome. Who else is here? Tim in Texas, welcome. Diane in London, Ontario. Anna Shalom and David Nilsida. I hope I pronounced that right. The Dominican Republic. Boker Tov. Jacob. Good morning. Erica in Norway is with us. And in Germany, Michael is with us. Good afternoon to both of you. Rena in Colorado. Good morning. Dominique. Oh, David. Bonjour. In Montreal. Welcome. And Eugene in Calgary. Welcome, Beth in Ohio. Suzanne is with us, and Susan from Scranton. Suzanne in New Jersey. Okay, wonderful. Vilma, Kevin, Sina, Marcy, Rory, Matteo. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. I'm sorry. I need a class in this. Eliyahu and Big Dreamer. Hello. Okay, folks, we're going to continue in chapter 42 of Tanya. It's actually a very short class. Long meditation, though. Not a long meditation that we'll do, but at least a long meditation. Welcome, Batya. So, the Alter Rebbe has been explaining to us that what to meditate upon. It was at greater length yesterday, and he says today that if we ponder and meditate, and this meditation actually is not a short one, for considerable time. I'm not certain what that means, considerable time. I think it means more than 5 minutes, though, which is, that itself is not so easy, to meditate and ponder about your relationship with God, the greatness of God. God is creator, the omnipotence of God, how he creates higher worlds, lower worlds, and many aspects in that, how the world is filled with his immanence and he is transcendent at the same time. And not only that, but he's looking at me specifically. And that's something we spoke about seeing yesterday, that concept. Searching within me. Am I truly serving him to the utmost of my capability? Whew. So, now there was just something interesting. If we will meditate and contemplate upon this for a certain length of time, I guess that would depend on each person. That it becomes something, again, as we've mentioned, visceral, real. It's not just a belief. It's not just an idea that is, we have always ideas in our head and they just float. It's not a floating idea, but it's das. So we're connected to it, to the idea that it becomes real for us. And we do that for a prolonged time. So the Alter Rebbe says an interesting thing, that throughout the day, that when we are brought to any kind of situation, challenge, that if we just go back on that meditation and briefly conjure it up again, throughout the day we will be okay. We will be able to live off it, so to speak. That meditation, that contemplation that we engaged in profoundly, deeply, at some point during the, earlier in the day, like before, prayers or something of that sort, or maybe during prayer even, because it's implanted in the heart. It's been not just implanted, but I guess it's what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? It's seared in the heart, I guess, in such a manner, the realness of it, that you can conjure it up again throughout the day. And when you need a moment to have that presence of God, it can, in that moment, be there for you and help you through when whatever challenge you're going through at that time. And ultimately, for basically to bring you to turn away from something negative, from evil, and to do something that is good, that is positive, in thought, speech, and action. In other words, in our behavior, that we won't go against that which God wants. And if you recall, that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, leader of the Jewish people during the time of the destruction of the Second Holy Temple in the year 69 of the Common Era, this is what he said to his students on his deathbed, that so be it that you should have the fear of heaven upon you, meaning keeping away from doing wrong, as you have the fear of a human being. In other words, the fear of the human being is the fear of their presence, in their presence, that we don't want to do something wrong. We don't want to, appear to be doing something wrong, and therefore kind of disconnected from that person. And this then, the Alter Rebbe says, comes full circle. We started at the beginning of this chapter. Remember, we quoted from the Talmud that what does God want from you? What does the Lord your God want from you? Only to fear from him. And we asked the question, or the Talmud asked the question, actually. The sages in the Talmud asked the question, is that so simple? The fear of God? And the response was, yes, it is. For Moses, it's simple. And as we asked the question, if you recall, well, we're speaking about every Jewish person, and the response you're giving is that for Moses it's simple? Well, maybe for Moses it's simple, for Moshe Rabbeinu, but that doesn't make it simple for me and for you and for every single Jew. So the Alter Rebbe explained, because we have a spark of Moses, we have a piece of him in us that allows us to have something that he has, das, visceral awareness, making something real, the presence of God to make it real. So when we touch that part in us, and this is what now is coming full circle, will be easy. What will be easy, though? It will be easy. So the rest of the verse says to walk in the ways of God, to walk in his ways, meaning that we will behave in thought, speech, and action in the ways of God. That's what it means to walk in the ways, right? It means in behavior, that we'll be able to go away from negativity and engaged in positivity. We'll stay away from a sin and we'll do a mitzvah. And we have that quality, every single one of us in our soul, as we have a piece, so to speak, of Moses within us. And that when we access that part in us, then it's a minor thing. I guess the major thing is to find that part of Moshe Rabbeinu in us, to be able to have that contemplation, that meditation, that uh, that God is real to such a way that I feel connected in a real manner, that throughout the day, when I can just come back to that meditation, even for a moment, it's going to help me throughout the day. And that's the hidden treasure that we have in every one of our souls that we can access. I guess the work to access it is greater than once we find it, then it's a minor thing. That fear, which means the presence of God in a visceral way, that we live with it in a real way, that living meaning we walk in the ways of Hashem, meaning our behavior. That we, not that we feel differently, because that's not behavior. Feelings are beyond behavior. Feelings we can't control. We can only control the thought process that comes from feelings. That, in other words, if we have a negativity in our heart, that negativity, to transform it, we're not going to be able to so easily, or we won't be able to really. That's a righteous person can do that. But what we can do is not give it playtime. In other words, not allow us to have a cogitated, willful thought about that negative feeling in the heart. So it might be still lurking in the heart, but we don't allow that to be, willfully thought about, which, again, that's part of the behavior and speech and action, of course. And that really is the idea today. So, profound meditation that can guide us throughout the day. I'm not, be quite frank, I'm not certain. I don't. I can't say I've done this in such a way that I have been able to meditate something very deeply, in the beginning of the day, and then, later on in the day, come back to it. Not in reference to God, maybe in other ways, perhaps. Yeah, but that's like a very profound form of meditation, that it really guides, and you live with it, or it's there, sort of in the back burner, that you can bring it forward anytime, is a powerful thing that will allow you at any given moment, that when you're in a challenged moment, a difficult moment, a moment where you feel that, you have some negative forces within you, that from your animal soul, that are arising, that you can deal with it based on that idea. And we have the power, that's for sure. Well, as we've always said, we're a work in progress. I am not a Bainani. I don't think any of us here are a Bainani, but you know what we can be? Is a B-I-T, a Bainani in training. We're in the training process that we can have mastery over ourselves, over our actions, over our words, and even over willful, cogitated thought. That's who we are. So, it's a very short class today. If we have any thoughts on that, any comments, any questions, please come forward. Of course, on Facebook or on Instagram, when you are asking a question, please, if you don't mind, put 2 question marks first, so then I become aware that it is indeed a question, because we have a lot of comments. Thank God, it's beautiful every day on Facebook. Lots of comments, and it's hard to distinguish at times. So, anybody come forward? Vilma, Bachi, if you have something, or anybody else on Clubhouse, please join us. While you're thinking, I'll share. Irma, thank you for sharing, and John. I ask if you can rephrase what we've learned in your own words. I know now that. So it allows us to own the teachings of the day. So, sorry, I just lost it. Irma from St. Martin says, I know now that when we walk in the ways of Hashem, we will behave in thought, speech, and action in the ways of God. Very good. Thank you. John says, many of us experience the feeling when a fear when a police officer pulls in behind us when we're driving. Very good, John. Yeah. Um, Very good. May God help that you fear heaven as much as you fear flesh and blood. Yes. That's a good example. I'm just, um, I laugh at it because I've been there, like all of us have been there. And so the initial fear of that police officer is just the presence of that police officer, right behind us, right? And perhaps we were speeding. Um, and even if we weren't, just the presence of that police officer, brings already the fear. Now, probably the second thought is the fear of punishment. Oh, I'm going to get a ticket. The first thought, though, the first moment is just the presence of the police officer, right? What happens when you have that presence, right, John? That was really something. Well, what happens when you have that presence? If you were speeding, or even if you weren't, you probably let go of the pedal. The pedal might have been to the metal, and now you're letting go of it. You're changing your action, right? Immediately. And that's the idea. Not the fear of the punishment that will come thereafter, but in that brief moment, you kind of, off the accelerator, you're taking off your foot, or the heavy foot perhaps at that moment. Very good. Thank you, John. Um, Lisa says, I know now that if I can tap into the spark of Moshe that is naturally inside of us, that I can be more easily connected to my God, enabling me to stay connected through the day, making it easier to dispel any negative feelings, thoughts, or actions. Very good. Excellent. 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 Okay. Anybody? I don't know if I missed anybody. I don't see any questions. Davida, did I miss a question? Please let me know. What's happening here? Oh, what's happening over here on Clubhouse? Anybody? Everybody, please. Instagram. Oh, Vilma, go ahead, please.
Yeah, this power of meditation is really powerful, and it takes practice. But it is something that I've seen, and it is beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. It's when practice, and as I mentioned for myself at least, in the fast-paced world that we live in, to be able to slow down, I guess, this is Erev Shabbos, and Shabbos is coming, and definitely time that we slow down when Shabbos comes. And the truth is that is more of a time of meditation is on Shabbos because we have the opportunity, being that we shut off the world and that we can slow down. And actually, just comes to mind of older Hasidim that I would see them davening late into the afternoon with a tallis over their head, meditating, contemplating, davening, praying at great length, and what trying to do is to the things that we learned during the week and the concepts and the teachings that are intellectual teachings now need to become not just merely a teaching, but something very real in our lives. And again, that's definitely a challenge, but we are all capable on a certain level. Everybody what they're capable of. Jacqueline, sorry if I can pronounce that right. Through meditation, are we supposed to find the God in ourselves, being a creation of Hashem? Good question. Excellent. So, not really, not to find that will be the because to find the God in yourself might make yourself um, into something that we don't want to make ourselves into, and we have to be careful with that. What we're trying to do is find ourselves in God. I mean, there might be else. There is, maybe an occasion to find the God in you, but here it's about finding that which is greater than you, that you become absorbed in, and you sense, that greatness that you are a part of, and in a sense, it is that which is in you, but the meditation is not about finding it in you, but finding that which is greater than you, God that's greater than you. And that's maybe, actually, thank you for that question, because now it clarifies for me, it speaks always about in meditation about the greatness of God. And others, to meditate upon us can maybe bring out the greatness in us. And that's not what this meditation is for. It's more about the meditation of finding the greatness of God and how we're part of that. Batya, go ahead. I see that you unmuted yourself. Go.
Hi, Rabbi. I just wanted to say that when we do take the time to do this daily with meditating on it, specifically on Shabbos, that it affects the whole rest of the week, the upcoming week until the following Shabbos. I mean, where you feel like you don't have energy and a lot of different things. When you actually put this into practice, you can feel, that there's a difference, but you can really sense and feel the difference in how your week goes as a result thereof.
Very good. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And hence, just to add to what you said, that's why, Shabbos is a source of blessing for the entire week. And that's not just leftovers, by the way. And by the way, a sign of why you should like leftovers, because, Shabbos, usually there are leftovers. So it's a blessing for the entire week. But more than just the physical blessing, which it is absolutely for the entire week, Shabbos is also the source of blessing for the spirituality of the week. And that comes through, if you look on Shabbos, the prayers are much longer, which means the meditations would be longer. And as being that we have that time, and as Bachis, you said so well, that it becomes now the source of blessing for the week, that spirituality we can carry it off into the week. And as when we make Havdalah, right, we have my cup runneth over. The cup runs over with wine or grape juice, whatever. And in order that the blessings of Shabbos should um, fall over, or should make itself into the week. And if we take the spiritual blessings of Shabbos, which is the real idea of Shabbos, it's not just merely physical rest, but it's, invigorating the spirit, then, yeah, it is definitely the way to go. Thank you for sharing that, Batya. Anybody else something to share? Thank you, Jacqueline, for that. Jacqueline, for that question. Very great. Julie says, I know now that I slow down and meditate, stress leaves my body and mind, and I can connect more freely with God and others. Yes, thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. Elcida has a question. Yes, but we're holy because God created us. We are, one second, how did I just lose that? Oh, another. We're holy because God created us and He is holy. Right. We are holy, absolutely, without the meditation. But that means inside of us we are holy, but that doesn't mean our behavior is holy. Doesn't mean we are acting holy, speaking holy, or thinking holy. So this meditation is to help us that we can express in our what we call garments, just as garments are, the expression of expresses the person. right? Garments are not just to cover you up, to cover up the nakedness, but they're actually to bring a self-expression of the individual. Um, so likewise, our thought, speech, and action are to bring the self-expression of my intelligence, of my emotions, of the core of my soul, to express it. So holiness is true, but that doesn't mean it's being expressed in the garments of self-expression in our behavior of thought, speech, and action. I hope that brought clarification to your question, Nil Sida. Um, okay. Anybody else to share? Rabbi Foyle, thank you for joining us.
I have a question.
Sure, Vilma, go ahead.
So is peace and restraint, like in form of kavura, part of it? Because people who are more peaceful and they're able to restrain themselves from maybe like eventually getting to that higher level where they're no longer getting those negative thoughts, speech, and actions, but like just the simple act of being at peace with ourselves helps not get into like negativity and play with it, whether it's in our heads or in somebody else's head.
Very good. Um, so, what does it mean? Thank you for bringing that. That's really good comment and thought and question, but comment. Um, so interesting. What does peace mean in Hebrew? Shalom. Shalom comes from shalem, meaning whole. When we are whole in of ourselves, that's when we're at peace with ourselves, and therefore we don't have to think negative of ourselves or of somebody else. When we are not whole, when we have rather holes in the soul, right? When we are a painful soul because of the holes in our soul that we have, whether circumstances have created, um, or that we have added, insult to injury, so to speak, in our lives, then we're not whole, and therefore we're not at peace, and therefore what will happen is we will see ourselves in a negative light, and we will then perceive others in a negative light. Exactly. Wow, that was beautiful, actually. Um, the answer to that is, the answer to that is, um, there's two ways to go about that. One is to try to look deep in your soul and see where the holes are, and to try to recognize where your pain is, um, where you need fixing. That's one way. In a certain way, that's what therapy kind of deals with. But then there's another way, um, and this might be more the first way to go, and it's more the Jewish way. Is don't focus so much on yourself. Focus more on your purpose. Focus more on the mitzvah, on doing good, on doing what God needs from you. And then what's going to happen is those holes in our soul will get slowly but surely filled, even though we didn't deal with where the problem, where the little kid in me is um, afraid, right? I won't have to deal with that little kid in me that's afraid, because I'm focused in on not the the smallness of me and the problem and the pain that I have, but I'm focused beyond me, what I was created for, what God needs me in this world to fulfill. And it won't it won't fill all the holes in the soul, because in the end you do need to look inside. But the starting point would not be so much looking inside and try to mend the child in me that is in pain, that's suffering, but it would be purpose, what God's purpose is, that He created me for. And focusing on that will be the first step on making ourselves complete, making ourselves at peace with ourselves, peace with ourselves, in the positive sense, because in a sense you should never be at peace with yourself because you're trying to grow, but on the level of growing, but at peace with yourself of who you are and what you are. I hope that added something to what you brought up, Vilma, which was really very nice. I hope that added something for everybody.
It's beautiful, yeah. So growth is important, but feeling whole and not fearful, that is something I've worked on since I was a child, since, my unique situation, I was born into chaos and war, so I had to work on myself.
Yeah, yeah. So we're probably on some level, many of us have, have that within us. Uh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Sina. Okay, she has a question. Does meditation help bring action forward because of the constant thoughts that goes into meditating? Um, Yes, I hope I got the question clear, Sina. But when we meditate here, that we're speaking about the greatness of God, right? Not about our greatness, but not about our problems either, right? But about how there's a transcendence in our life that we are connected to and a part of, and so on. So when we meditate upon that, that's what the Alter Rebbe is saying, that it will help our actions, and because of the constant thought that goes into meditating, because you know so see, okay, I think I understand your question. So what's interesting over here is thought, and thank you for that question, Sina, very good. Thought um, you know is the closest thing of self-expression, right? As the Baal Shem Tov says, in the thoughts of the person, that's where you're at. In other words, what you think about, that's what your inner world, where you're at, so to speak. Right? You may say to someone, "I love you," but in your thoughts, you don't think that. You think the opposite. You may even act in a loving way, but your thoughts and feelings are very different. But what your thoughts are is a true expression of you. Yeah, right. What you think, a truer expression, at least, truer expression. So therefore, since it's a truer expression of me, it reflects more the me of me. Therefore, the more I think about whatever I think about, the more it's going to affect the things that I will act upon and do. So that's why that meditation is so powerful, because it's going to affect ultimately the way I act. Actually, to take that a step further, it's interesting. Vis-a-vis, if I do something wrong, what's worse, the action or the thought of it? So we always say, well, the action.
The thought of it.
But the thought of, oh, so very good, Vilma. The thought of it. That's counterintuitive, right? Because what do you mean, the action? Because the action is something that's expressed in the world. The thought is only between me, myself, and I, and who knows about it, right? So if I have some illicit thought about somebody and I don't act it out, okay. So, but that's not the distinction here. In the thought versus the action of a negative thought and the behavior of it, vis-a-vis the other person, obviously the action is worse, right? So when you did something towards a person, the action of it is much worse than the thought of it. But that's vis-a-vis the other person. Vis-a-vis me, the thought is worse. Because the thought, go ahead, Vilma. Go ahead.
Because the thought is hurtful to you, and the more you have it, the more hurt it has on you. And if you're thinking like really bad thoughts, like of killing people, that too, God knows, it's not good.
Absolutely. And why is it worse? Because thought is the truer garment of self-expression as opposed to action. It is a truer self-expression where the action is not. Now, again, vis-a-vis the other person, it's of course worse, and it's punishable. The thought isn't punishable, but the action is. If you hurt another person, if you harm them in any way, then that's punishable in a court of law, absolutely. But in reference to yourself, the thought is much more damaging to you than the action, because again, action is separate from you, the thought is of you, which is a very interesting and again probably a counterintuitive idea. Okay, any other thoughts over here? Did I miss any questions? No, I think I got them. Anybody here on Clubhouse that would like to share, please do. Do I see? Oh, I see a question here from Instagram. Just curious, can a prayer when you feel the negativity be also like a form of meditation when you're going into the deep in thought, even if for a brief time? So any kind of meditation, even if it's brief, is valuable. Even if it's brief, it's valuable. I'm not certain what you mean when you say a prayer that you feel the negativity. That's not what you're meditating is on negativity. Again, if you meditate on negativity, obviously that has a very negative consequence. But if you do have meditation deeply, even for a brief time, absolutely. Let's try this Shabbos. I'm going to try this Shabbos to try the power of meditation. See if, to try to make your relationship with God, your connection, the awareness of God's presence, the greatness of God, how He's transcendent and we are absorbed in His infinite light. Just kind of sense that in our minds and let that kind of reverberate in the thoughts, that it becomes now something that the soul kind of senses and experience. Let's try that this Shabbos and see where that takes us. And if you want to, on Sunday we have our class at 10:30, you can share. And if you don't want to, that's okay, as long as you're sharing with God. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I think it's really powerful that we believe that our actions are more, who we are, but it's not true. It's our thoughts. And whatever we think of grows. It becomes a reality. So if we grow with God, that is so beautiful.
Yes. Yep. That's why thinking, we are thinking people, and if we can, we all have a stream of consciousness and how our mind goes. More that we can kind of be on top of it, the more we can be not allow the stream of consciousness to rule us, but we kind of are able to focus our thoughts, and that's what meditation is. The idea. Meditation is not like Eastern meditation where you clear your mind. Jewish meditation or this meditation here is about filling your mind with a transcendent sense of the presence, the realness of God and your connection to God. Yeah, absolutely. Alice has a question here. When bad thoughts enter your mind, how does that reflect you? Well, it means you are in a bad place. And let's get something straight over here, folks. We are not righteous. We will have bad thoughts. The question is there's only one question. We will have bad thoughts. So let's, we are not holy, righteous people. Again, we are BITs, I hope. Beinoni in training. We're trying to get to the self-mastery of our behavior. A righteous person has not only mastery over their behavior, but they have mastery over the urges of their heart. They don't have no negative urges, so they have no negative thoughts that come to their mind. We do, because of those urges in our heart. So we have negative thoughts. The question is, do we give it playtime? And especially, and this is really something, if there's anything that I can inspire you with, besides meditating on Shabbos, is that don't play a broken record in your head of negativity. This person that you have something negative in your connection with them. It's usually a loved one and usually a closer one. We play a broken record over, oh, he did that again. And then you start thinking about what he did. Da, 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 da. Or she, oh, there she goes again, right? We play, and then, now, the fact that we thought that, right, forget about saying it, shouldn't say it, but the fact that we thought that, we will. But then we start playing it over in our heads, over and over, a broken record. That's when we have a gaping hole in our soul, that we are out of control because we did not stop it. When we stop it, then that means we have some kind of mastery over the negative thought processes that come to us. Now, sometimes we'll stop it right away because we're really in control, really a master of ourselves. I mean, at least more so. And sometimes it'll be only 30 seconds later, and sometimes it might only 3 days later. What am I doing thinking this way? Stop it. It's wrong. God doesn't want this. It's really bringing me down on top of it. Da 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 da. So yes, that is what we have, that capability. So the thought itself, don't worry about it. It's the willful, cogitated, engaged thought is the issue over here. I hope that clarified. Corel, did I pronounce your name correctly?
It's fine. You can pronounce it any way you wish.
Sorry?
You can pronounce it whatever way you wish, Rabbi. It's okay.
I want to pronounce it the way you pronounce it.
Because everybody has a different accent, and I went to a lot of places where everybody says it differently. I say Koral because it's in Hebrew.
Okay, got it. Go ahead, Coral. Please.
Okay, so I kind of want to build on what you just said and ask a bit of a different question, and that is, when you have a relative, let's say a parent or even a different relative, but just for that specific law, a parent that is very toxic for your health, how do you manage that? Because then you have the kabedet v'chavetimecha. On the other hand, you have your mental health, which could be considered a form of pikuach nefesh in a way, no?
Wow, very good question, and a not and what should I say? Not an uncommon issue. We probably all have toxic people in our lives that don't bring out the best in us, and being around them is like Coral, as you said, brings us into a place, where we don't want to be, and it's not healthy for our mental and emotional health. So how do we deal with it, especially if you need to honor a parent? So so there's two ways that perhaps can suggest. One is in a beginning level, when there's buttons that are in us that are pushed that bring us into a bad space. Then sometimes we need to stay away from that person and engage more from a distance. You can still, if it's parents, you can still honor them by, calling them Erev Shabbat maybe and wishing them, Shabbat Shalom, and maybe try to engage in a very, easy breezy kind of conversation. Probably not good to bring up personal things in your life that may then in turn push a button and make toxic the environment. And if it's really bad, sometimes, you just have to tell them right now I'm not in a good place. And the truth is, I think what's honest and fair and correct is not to make it about them, but about myself. I'm just not in a place right now that I can deal and handle this, and therefore, this is the way I can deal with it. And you set out the parameters. Um, that is one way, and probably a beginning way, but I wouldn't suggest that that is the ultimate evolved way. The evolved way, and especially because these toxic people are people that are close to us, and again, if it's like, there's different levels of toxic relations, um, and again, if it's just about pushing a button in me, if it's about someone who is really destructive, then that's a different story. And you need to speak to your rabbi or to your mentor or someone, to deal specifically. But if it's just that, it pushes a button in me and it just is not, it brings me down. So then another question is, how can I become more evolved that that won't bring me down? That it's about them and I don't make it about me. In other words, I recognize that this is them. I can't change them. I'm not here to change them, right? That's not my duty as a child of a parent, and not my, and or even of someone else, unless they want, you know, advice from me or influence and inspiration from me, but probably not. But if I can evolve to the level where I can understand that and recognize that their, negativity is not a reflection of me, it's not about me, it's about them, then I might be able to deal with them and accept them for who they are. That's evolved. An even more evolved level is not only that I can accept them for who they are, but the fact that they say something negative um, about me, I could take it and take some message there that I can evolve even, and I can grow from it. And when I can do that, and especially if I can do that lovingly, that's an evolved level, right? Then what might even happen that it won't be toxic anymore. But that takes an effort. Um, that takes work, and it's not so simple. Um, if a person's not there, again, the first level might be, that you need to deal with it in such a way that you create the boundaries, and if those boundaries aren't respected, then you need to create other boundaries until that, maybe if it's necessary to be more at a distance, you can still honor them by, leaving a voice note, sending a card, sending a card, and so on. But again, the key over here is not to make it about them, but about you, how you take it and how you respond to it. That's how we can evolve. The more we make it about them, the more it'll remain toxic, and it won't change. Does that help you?
Yeah, and I was in general curious, not only about parents specifically, but also in general, where they say that you have to treat everyone well, but when people are toxic to you, to the point where it's life-threatening mentally, whether, you should stick around, regardless of whether it's, your parents, your aunt, your friend.
Right. So, you definitely, parents, so you need to honor them, and other, you definitely don't need to make this person integral in your life. Um, that, that's for sure. So you don't need to seek them out, and you don't need to be around them, and, but when you do engage, so, these are maybe some of the healthy guidelines in how we can engage. So yeah, definitely, if it's damaging to you, then definitely you don't need to hang around this person. But if it's someone who's like a parent, uh, and that, you know, there is a relationship, so then it could evolve into something that you can um, ultimately even be able to accept whatever negativity that's coming from them. Take Not take the negativity, but take the message. I think that's, you know, I heard a nice word. Mess, a mess means there's a message. In the mess, there's a message. What we see is the mess. We see that which is toxic. But we need to know that in that mess, there is a message. And if we can seek out the message, um, then that's evolved. That's an evolved person who then can take out something positive from the mess. And that's hopefully what we can, you know, arrive at.
And last question.
Sure.
Let's say you work in an industry where you work with a lot of different Jews, and you know we always want to respect the other Jews, not only Jews but everyone.
Right.
But when you see that, for example, your fellow Jew is not acting according to the protocol of how the business should be ran, then is it allowed then to do the same, because it harms your business in a way? So, like, what does it?
A very good question. Wow. Thank you for these wonderful questions. So I guess also it depends what your position in the company is. If you're the CEO, then you have a responsibility to others. And if this person is toxic, if this person is, you know, creating a problem, like me as a rabbi, you know, having a synagogue over here, I've had, you know, individuals throughout the years who are toxic and creating a negative environment. And I've spoken to them about it, and being that I'm responsible to them and I'm responsible to the other people. And not everybody's an involved person, and therefore that negativity can be very harmful. And because of that, I need to be concerned for those people that are being harmed by that toxic person and deal with it. However you deal with it, you know, whatever way that you know, each situation will be a bit different, but responsible to deal with it. If you're not responsible and someone else is responsible, then you know, as a worker in a place, maybe the responsibility would be to bring it up to the people that are responsible, and you know, that they should be aware of the negative vibe, the toxic environment that this is creating, and this is you know, not helping the corporation. It's not helping the people in the corporation.
You misunderstood my question. So I'll give for example, an example.
Sure.
So let's say I work at a bakery, and next to me another Jew works as well in a bakery, and we both sell the same bread for the same price normally. But one day he goes and he buys, let's say, fake bread. Okay, it doesn't exist, I know, but for this purpose of the example,
right,
he buys fake bread and he sells that to his clients, and he can take my clients as well. So what can I do about it? Can I start selling fake bread as well because of that? Am I allowed it then, by the logic of...
Right.
Or no?
So I mean, we need to be honest. So if someone else is dishonest, that doesn't allow us to go down to their level and to be dishonest. That we can't do. Now, do we reveal to others the dishonesty there? Maybe we have that responsibility. Maybe there is a responsibility there that that has to be, you know, divulged, whether through me or through whatever sources. But for sure, you know, we don't go down to the lowest common denominator, which is not honest. That we can't do. How do you deal with such a situation? That's a very good question.
Because in the Jewish community that's like we live in, we keep everything pretty much on the inside. We don't ever involve the outside authorities on anything ever. Like very rarely so.
Right. Well, maybe at this instance you need to. Just because that's the way it's done in the community, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you should do. Maybe we have the responsibility. I guess, my guiding light would be, what would Hashem want me to do in this situation? How should I deal with this? There's, a competitor who is being dishonest. I don't want to be dishonest. How should I handle and deal with this? That would be like what I would, put my head down and I would kind of think, and I would probably maybe ask another rabbi, my rabbi, what do I do in this situation? That's what I would do. It's a very personalized kind of situation, and that's how I would deal with it personally.
Okay.
You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing such wonderful questions. Beautiful. All right, folks. I think that is it for today. Baruch Hashem. We know how to make a short class into a lengthy discussion, which is beautiful. Vilma, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, these are deep questions. As far as I understand, God judges all our actions and our ethics, whether it's business, personal, all of it.
Yes, absolutely. So we got to do what's right. That's it. All right, folks, I want to wish everybody good Erev Shabbos and a wonderful Shabbos. It's Shabbos Mevorchim. We're going to bless the new month of Iyar. Iyar is the acronym Ani Hashem Reifecha. I am Hashem, your healer. So, if we need healing, which we all do a mitzvah. Hashem is our source of healing through the mitzvah that we do. And again, reminder, if we can meditate a little bit on Shabbos, on what we spoke about today, hopefully we can be blessed throughout the week with that meditation that will guide us to have a wonderful week thereafter, besides a wonderful Shabbos. Thank you all. Be well.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. All the best. Thank you, folks. Beautiful. I think I got everybody. Davida, thank you for being on top of this. Amazing. Beautiful. Be well.